Welcome to Voices of Influence publication. I'm Criss Madrigal. I am the creator of Voices of Influence. And I was going to plan this live and give everyone the opportunity to join me, but the message didn't want to wait. And so I figured I would just come in and you can just catch this at the time that works for you. In fact, I was going to do this live just for my paid tier inside the collaboration room, but then I was just called to share it with everyone. And I want to remind you and remind those that are here viewing that anyone who steps into the collaboration room, that is a room where you don't have to perform, right? You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to stand out. You just have to arrive. Arrive there just like you can arrive with me right now. And just take a deep breath. I feel the most amazing energy when I'm in this platform. And it's just compiling and adding as I bring in transition, the collaboration room into Substack. And what I want to share with you today, the purpose of this live is really to share something that I spoke on a global stage last week. The thing that really stayed with me after the event. And it is that legacy is not built on stages alone. It is built in rooms like the collaboration room. And my keynote last week was to stop trying to stand out and start leaving a legacy. And that is the reason why the message continued to linger with me. Because while I am building stages like the top 50 Voices of Influence virtual stage this upcoming June, I realized that legacy is being built here in Substack in this platform, but it is also being built in rooms like the collaboration room. Now, there's something that I said last week that I want to bring in here, but in a slightly different way. And it's that standing out is keeping you small. And I know that it may feel uncomfortable because we've been taught that standing out is the goal, right? To be more visible and be more bold and be more seen, right? But the truth is that standing out was never the goal. You weren't born to be noticed. You were actually born to be remembered. And there is a huge difference in that. And it's in part why I love Substack, because people here are leaving their legacy through their thought leadership, through their work, through their message. Because people who are trying to stand out are still performing, right? And you're adjusting yourself to be received. And if you find yourself in that space, you might still be asking yourself, am I saying this right? Am I being perceived the right way? Is this enough? And honestly, it becomes a performance. And performance does not build legacy. It actually builds exhaustion. And when you live that way for far too long, then what ends up happening is you actually start to disconnect from your voice. And I say that because that happened to me. It happened to me where I began to disconnect from my voice. And there was a time, and I know so many people here on Substack will resonate with this because people who got to a point where they did not recognize themselves anymore, right? And I was there. I got to a point where I just didn't know who I was anymore. I'd spent 20 years in corporate. And again, the story that we hear from so many is that from the outside, it looked very successful, right? And I was producing the results and being recognized and being seen. But on the inside, something was pulling at me. The more time I spent in corporate, the bigger the misalignment that I felt, the bigger the disconnect. And honestly, I believe that's because deep inside, I knew I was here for something bigger. I knew that I didn't come to this earth just to live in a corporate career. And I say live because I spent so many hours away from home in a job that was so demanding, that required so much travel. And when I started to think, I realized that I wasn't just here to, be a mother and be a daughter and a wife and a professional in a corporate career. I was here for more. I was here to create something that was going to outlive me, something that was going to change for generations to come, right? And I remember being in the corporate world and being in meetings and having upper management always ask and always, put the ideas out there, let's bring new ideas. Let's think outside the box. Let's just, improve systems and do all that. And to me, that comes natural. It's part of my human design. I could see things that others can't. And over time, I was the one that they would seek out for projects, for special projects, for ideas. They would come to me for a different perspective. I worked in human resources for 20 years, but I was in the field and I had a completely different view than those sitting in the corporate offices. And I remember when things started to shift, when executives and, upper management would come to me for ideas, for just a different perspective. And that was great. But then when I started to approach executives with ideas, then it was too much, right? And I remember being told by one executive, Criss, you think too big. You need to think smaller. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know how to do that. This is who I am. This is how I think. And to be told to think smaller is to shrink myself. And I couldn't do that anymore, right? That over time, because that was said to me, but I continued to stay in that space, in that career, in that specific job, right? But what ended up happening is I ended up adapting to what was being requested of me, right? And over time, that just became a performance. And I learned how to perform strength, and I learned how to perform leadership, and I learned how to perform visibility. But performance does not build legacy. It builds exhaustion. And when you live that way long enough, you disconnect from your voice. And this is when we begin to shrink, right? Because we don't feel anchored enough to belong. And that doesn't just happen in corporate. It happens in everyday conversations, in relationships, on social media. It even happens in the rooms that you're meant for. And that is how legacy is delayed. It's not because you're not ready, but it's because you're waiting. You're waiting for someone to receive you, to accept you, just to invite you. And I remember the moment when I looked at myself in the mirror and I no longer recognized that reflection. And I'd lost my identity, right? I lost it in motherhood. I lost it in my career. I lost it in expectations. And in that season, what I remember is that my desire to belong was so much stronger than my desire to be seen. And this is where everything changed, because I started to realize that what I was actually craving wasn't even visibility, it was belonging. I wanted to feel connected. I wanted to feel understood. I wanted to feel like I just could be who I was without having to perform. I just wanted my big ideas to belong in a space that were being received, right? But here's the truth. Belonging is an inside job, right? And it's not something that a room is going to give you. It's not something that people will give you, that a job. It is an inside job, right? And it's something that you decide before you ever walk in, before you ever walk into a conversation, into a room, into a career. It doesn't matter. Before you walk in anywhere, you have to decide that you belong there. And when we anchor into that, everything shifts, right? And we stop questioning ourselves. We stop shrinking. We stop trying to stand out. And in the process, we become magnetic, right? And our genius just unfolds naturally. And the best part is that the people who've been searching for us all along recognize us instantly, right? So if you're tuning in, I want to ask you something. I want you to sit and contemplate, where in your life are you still trying to stand out? And where are you being called to belong? And if you feel called, I want you to drop that in the comments. I want you to leave a comment below and let me know, where in your life are you trying to stand out? And where are you being called to belong? This space, this publication of mine, this is a space of trust and zero judgment. So if there's any comments that are dropped that don't feel like they come from a place of love and understanding and connection towards another person, they'll be removed. Because people that are going to engage with this publication, engage with my content, are people that belong here, right? And so again, I ask you, where in your life are you still trying to stand out? And where are you being called to belong? Because that answer right there, that's your next level. The next level starts exactly where you belong. And if you're feeling any kind of judgment of others, then ask yourself if this is where you truly belong, right? Now, there is a frequency that our voice carries, and that frequency determines whether your words are noise or legacy, right? Because influence is not volume, right? It is coherence. It is when your words and your energy and your body, your truth, they're all saying the same thing. It is all in coherence. And I'm very sure that everyone has experienced this, where someone can speak for an hour and nothing lands. Or someone can say one sentence and it just shifts everything inside of you, right? That's frequency. But before you are heard, you must be seen. But before you are seen, you must belong. And this is why the collaboration room exists. This is not another place to post content, but a place to belong, right? A place where you don't have to perform to be seen. It is a place where your voice gets to expand in real time. And inside the collaboration room, we don't just consume, we collaborate. We support each other's work. We subscribe to each other's platforms and publications. We restack here on Substack. We comment, we amplify. And most importantly, we invite each other into our worlds. Because that is how legacy grows. It is not in isolation, it is in community. And I want to say this clearly because this matters. The leaders inside the collaboration room, those that are already in and those that choose to step in, right? They're not outside looking in. You are in the room, you are in proximity, and you are in alignment. And that is how Voices of Influence grows, through aligned invitations, through connection, right? Through leaders saying, you belong in this room, by you feeling that you belong in the room. So I want to activate this space right now, right? And if you have a publication here on Substack, drop it. Drop it below. I want to subscribe to you. I want to follow you. I want to learn more from you, right? If you're building something inside the collaboration room, you're going to share it. If you have a message that you're ready to be seen for, you're going to name it, right? Because this is how we build legacy together, right? So if you're here, if you're tuning in, if you are feeling this, this is your invitation to come in as an individual with all your gifts and all your messages and all your gifts and desires. I want you to come into the collaboration room. This is your invitation. Your invitation so we can be in proximity and participate and connect and collaborate in community. And I mean, if you feel the pull for something bigger towards visibility, towards stepping onto a stage like Top 50 Voices of Influence virtual stage, trust that. You don't need to be ready. You just need to be willing to share your voice, right? Top 50 Voices of Influence is my virtual stage, and it's where your voice becomes legacy. And I have a virtual event, Top 50 Voices of Influence, Women in Alignment, that is happening June 15th through the 19th. Applications are open for speakers and keynote speakers, and I'll drop the link if anyone's interested, right? And I put that out there because this is how we grow, through connection and collaboration. And if I was not inviting you into the collaboration room, if I wasn't inviting women into Top 50 Voices of Influence, Women in Alignment, then I'm not doing my part. My part to open that invitation to you. So, for now, I want to remind you, we don't build legacy by standing out. We build it by belonging. First to yourself, then to the rooms that reflect who you are becoming. And the collaboration room is one of those. The invitation is open. You are invited to step in. To step in, to connect, to collaborate, to be seen, to share your gifts. That is what this space is created for. And I look forward to welcoming so many of you. We're going to have our kickoff call the second Monday of April at 10 a.m. I'm going to put the invitation out there. The collaboration room has existed for months already, but now I am feeling the call to transition the current space and bring it into Substack because this is where it belongs. And we're going to have our first kickoff call in Substack on the second week of April. The second Monday. I'll tell you when. So it's going to be Monday, April 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific. Join me inside the collaboration room. Join us because the expansion, the growth, and the connection starts in community. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment below. Drop your publication below. I am here to support you. I am here to subscribe to you if it aligned with me, and I'm here to follow you. Thank you, and have an incredible week.